One of the big mysteries of the Kensington Runestone is, how did Norse explorers get to the middle of Minnesota in the year 1362? One clue is the text on the side of the runestone, which reads, "We have 10 men by the sea to look after our ships, 14 days' travel from this island, in the year 1362. First off, which sea is the text referring to? Is it Hudson Bay? The word used for sea on the runestone could also mean inland sea, so it could also be referring to either Lake Winnipeg or Lake Superior. But can you get to any of these bodies of water in just 14 days from Kensington, Minnesota? I used to think the ships were in Hudson Bay, but that is a 1,356-mile trip by boat and would be impossible to make in just 2 weeks. But even Lake Winnipeg is still 688 miles away, and that would be hard to do in just 14 days as well. Plus, in the runestone text it says, "We traveled west from Vinland." It would make sense in order to get back to Vinland, you would then travel east. So now I believe that the inland sea they were talking about is Lake Superior. But how would you make that trip in just 14 days? The most obvious route would be to go down the Chippewa River to the Minnesota River, which flows into the Mississippi, which takes you to the St. Croix, where you would travel upstream to Lake Superior. But that is still an almost 600-mile journey and would be hard to do in 14 days. I have been on many canoe trips in the Boundary Waters in Minnesota. The longest trip I went on, we traveled 160 miles in 9 days. This trip mainly involved lake travel interspersed with a lot of portages, the longest of which was a 3-mile portage. Given this experience, I approached planning a canoe trip to Duluth as I would plan a trip in the Boundary Waters and find the route that is the shortest and easiest. So doing my research, I discovered a lesser-known river called the Long Prairie River, which flows from Lake Carlos in Alexandria for 94 miles to the Crow Wing River in Motley. Lake Carlos is the top lake in a 20-mile chain of lakes. The bottom of the chain of lakes, Lake Mary, is only 10 miles away from Runestone Hill. If Runestone Hill was an island in 1362, the water levels back then would have been higher, and you could easily have gotten to Lake Mary by boat. You still can today, it just requires some portaging. Once you get to Lake Mary, you can easily travel, with a little portaging, to the tip of Lake Carlos. Then you would travel downstream on the Long Prairie River for 94 miles to the Crow Wing River, which flows into the Mississippi. You then would paddle upstream for 115 miles to Big Sandy Lake and the Savannah Portage State Park. Then you would take a long portage to the St. Louis River, which flows into Lake Superior 75 miles later. In total, this route is only 350 miles and is by far the shortest route I could find. The question is, how navigable is the Long Prairie River? I wasn't sure, so I decided to find out.